What's up guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video we're having a look at this. Now those that are not new to the channel will know that this has been on here 2 or 3 times already. The reason I'm doing another video on it is because I've just seen that this is now being sold in some hobby shops under the Carson brand. Bang had sent me this last year and it comes from Double E, or at least it did come from Double E then. And there was a few things that I picked up when I first unboxed it. We're going to talk about them today, and I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth about what you're buying. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I've seen how much that some of the hobby shops are charging for this. And in my opinion, I think there's some much better stuff you can get for the same price. So let's bring you in closer and let's talk about some of the stuff on this. And I'll show you a little bit of running footage from my previous video, just so you see how this goes. So when I unboxed this, I did question whether it was licensed. The box for this had Land Rover branding all over it. It's got a Land Rover badge on the front. However, what made me wonder is where that's meant to say Defender, it actually says Depender. Now that might have been a typo when they first made it, and that might now be fixed. So I did question, is it actually a licensed body? Now Carson pictures I've seen, it says Defender, so there's that question. And if it is licensed, that's fair enough. Regardless of that, I still don't think at the price point it's worth it. Now it's listed as a 1/8 scale. It's actually more like 1/10. It's got a 13-inch wheelbase. It is a Land Rover D110, so you could say it's 1/8 scale, but the rest of the body and the size of it is just not quite 1/8 scale. If you've seen, anyway, that aside, it looks good. It's a nice colour. It's got some nice wheel arches on it. Big tyres. Relatively soft, but still not much grip on there, not much traction. And overall the looks, I can't really fault it. Now where it goes wrong is the suspension. So friction dampers that are just held on by a couple of screws. If I drop it, you'll see there's not much damp in there at all. It has got a little bit of flex. And then underneath we've got some quite big chunky plastic drive shafts, all plastic multi-link suspension there, front and rear axles, and all the gears on this are plastic. I have had this apart and all the gears are plastic. The only bit of metal I can see on it is the steering rod there. 155, or I think the retail, or the recommended retail price for this is £170. That is over $200 for those of you in the US. $200 for, like I've said in the title, a toy grade RC. So we'll just switch it on. I'll just quickly show you a few bits. Then I'm going to show you some footage from a couple of previous videos of how it performs. And then I'm going to take the body off and I'm going to show you what's underneath. Mine's got a few different, I've got some holes in this and I've got a bit of vinyl on there and some holes in the back because I've actually had this body off and used it on a proper crawler in previous videos. Right, I'll just switch it on for you. It's got a 2-cell lithium ion in there, LEDs at the front. It is proportional throttle, meaning that when you push the throttle, the slower you push, the slower it goes. It's got a high and low switch on the throttle. That was in low. I'll switch it to high. Switch it back to low. Did you hear any difference? No, nor did I. That's something else I pulled up, that the high-low switch didn't seem to do much. When it's running, now and again it goes fast. Sometimes it slows down. It's just a little bit hit and miss. And the steering, although again proportional, so you turn it little bits at a time, turns, and the other way you can see it's a little bit, well, I don't want to turn that way. The reason it sounds a bit noisy and it's a bit jerky is because under there it's not actually got a servo, it's a motor in there with some gears, like the cheap non-proportional usually have that motor. This is proportional, just not a proper servo. Right, I'm going to show you some footage of it now running, then we'll come back, we'll take the body off, we'll have a look underneath, and then that will be a quick test in the garden. The only issue I've found with it is the throttle. Sometimes it's going slow, sometimes it speeds up, and then sometimes it cuts out. It can't make its mind up whether it wants the throttle duration all the way on or all the way off, or if the sort of the overcurrent, or if, like, you know, the overload cuts in. It's a bit random. So I think if you've got kids, straight out of the box, this will definitely be fun for the young kids and stuff like that, bouncing around. And there's certainly enough power on the grass and stuff like that. It would be okay. I'll get this out on a bit better terrain and give it a proper test for you. If you want it, it's pretty cheap. There's links in the description for both. It's pretty cheap, and as you'll see, this one doesn't actually struggle. The reason this didn't struggle as much is just the sheer size of it rolling over them rocks. I did have to take a few attempts rocking backwards and forwards to get over with the overload cutting in, but did manage to get over in the end. So there you go, both trucks made the course. The 1/8 scale, not quite as good. I did have to pick it up that one time because it couldn't get up the incline. It struggled up here. It took me 3 or 4 attempts to get up here, as you can see, but we did get up there in the end. But the 1/10. So once you've unscrewed all the arches, the body comes off, and I'll be honest with you, there's not much to it. I have, like I've mentioned, I have used it on another truck, so there are options to use this, and it's a pretty standard wheelbase for a crawler, like a 1/10 size crawler, but not much else to it. It's not all that bad. Let's have a look underneath the body. So body off, and this is what you're getting underneath that body. Just a very small electronics board there, your ESC and your receiver all in one, and nothing else. You can just see in there, see that in there, that's a little motor for your steering servo. Would have been very, very easy to get a servo in there, but that's it underneath. There is nothing else to look at. So underneath the little bit on the bottom, the gearbox is in there. You've got a 390 size brush motor, and you've got the drive shafts that go into your gearbox here. Plastic gears within there. I've had it apart already, and it's got plastic gears in there. They're, you know, plastic or nylon gears are pretty robust. If you start putting any brushless stuff in there, you might have issues, but overall that gearbox will do the job. So there you go, that is the 1/8 scale double E Land Rover Defender, which is exactly the same as the Carson that is being sold now. I hope this video gave you a little insight into what you're getting when you're spending all that money. My recommendation is to leave this on the shelf, don't buy it. Buy an FTX Outback for cheaper than this, and it's actually a proper crawler that you can upgrade, and it's much better. There's so much better stuff out here. So what I'm going to do, I'll leave a link to where you can get this cheaper if you really still want this. It's much cheaper on Banggood if you want to wait for it, so I'll leave a link to that. But what I'll also do is I'm going to leave a link to a few much better options than this that will get you a proper hobby grade crawler. If you want this for your kids, by all means go and buy it. 150 odd pound I've seen it for. Definitely not worth that, but at the end of the day, it's an RC car. It goes, it doesn't do too bad for a toy grade, and if your kids enjoy it, your kids enjoy it. Cheers for watching. I'll see you next time. Those of you that watch the channel quite often, this is also from Double E, and this is their cheaper toy grade version of this truck. I will do a comparison between the two another time. This video is going to be the unboxing for that, but they do two. But this thing's huge. I thought it was the same size as their toy one, but let me show you. Look at the size difference. And this is meant to be a 1/8 as well. This thing's massive.